Okay, you ready to go live, sister?
Let's go live. Let's do this thing, and I'll check on the face page, make sure we're there.
Okay, because my phone, what?
It says meeting is now streaming live on Facebook. Energy.
Oh my God! I feel like we should have a theme song. I know that some people, I was thinking about that all day, Jamie.
We ought to do a fusion of Don't Cry for Me, Argentina meets
Madonna.
Yeah, I just felt like my Star is Born came on there when I did that.
That was a little like Superstar. I mean, I was getting hit by the classics today. I put Pandora on, and you remember the song Mickey?
I do.
That started playing. I'm like, that's a good jam. You know, Friday nights.
Okay, I'm popping this over to my page so any of my folks can see us because we are definitely live on Facebook.
That's exciting. So my phone, I can't see any messages.
I'll set mine up so that I can. I have
cool.
this down to a system over here. So usually what I do is I keep my phone handy.
Yeah, for some reason, my internet isn't letting me load the page on my phone.
Oh, okay. No worries. I can see any comments that come through.
Okay, cool.
And if it's in the way of a question, I'll pass it along to you. So we have Livy joining us.
Oh, hey, Livy.
Saying so excited, as are we.
Happy Friday night.
Friday night, all the feels.
I mean, get ready, folks. Like, we will bring them. We're the powerhouses right here.
Don't cry for me.
Argentina.
What was the name? Don't cry for me, Quarantina.
Oh, right. I forgot that version.
Don't cry for me, Quarantina. Because the truth is I never left you. All through my wild days, my mad existence, I kept my promise. Please keep your distance.
Yeah.
So we have Patrick. Good luck, Patrick and Jamie from Elizabeth and Morty. Hello.
Oh, hi, Elizabeth and Morty.
Yeah, it says 13 people are watching us on the live stream right now.
Oh my God, it means it's like a real thing. And we got a couple people joining us on.
Yay.
The whole.
If they don't want to be on Facebook stream, then have them hide their cameras.
Okay.
Once they join us.
There we go.
Hello. I hope Jen will join us. I told her.
Yes, I emailed her. She said she would be here.
Inked and tiny, our little Tink.
Oh my God, I know. This is exciting. It's a nice.
Oh, what an exit. That's how to go when they're ringing your curtain down. Demand to be buried like Ava Perón. I think that's our musical, Patrick. You know how certain friend couples have like a musical? I mean, I know we both like many musicals, but since we watched Evita together,
yes,
in East Chatham that night,
yes, Post ice cream.
That was awesome ice cream.
That was really good Southside ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to go back just for that. We'll say hi to Adam.
We'll say hi to Adam too, yeah.
And the cute kid.
Where do we go from here?
Well, I told you what happened, when I went there, in Argentina years ago. I was with a friend of mine. Mm-hmm. And so when you go, you can see the beautiful gravesite or the tomb of Eva Perón.
Right.
Well, all of a sudden I'm there and, the spirit moves you. So you start singing the song and my friend's like all embarrassed. I said, we are literally in Buenos Aires. I'm not leaving without singing Don't Cry for Me, Argentina.
I wonder if, and you could probably shed light on this, is it an assumption in Buenos Aires that when somebody sings Don't Cry for Me, Argentina, that they're an American, just like making a fool?
I don't know if it's so much just American, but I think definitely tourist, because Buenos Aires is so much about tourism, and there's so much to see, the birthplace of tango, and, so there's performances all over the place. So I think they're just used to that.
Right. Because I don't know if I ever told you this story, that I went to Salzburg. This was like in 2001.
Okay.
And that was pre-easy internet or smartphones. And that's when I was still using, the Lonely Planet book to traipse through Europe. And in that, it said, don't go on the Sound of Music tour. It's really lame. I don't know if they said lame, but it's really boring unless there's a fun American on the bus. So guess who decided to be the fun, obnoxious American on the bus?
Oh, I would guess it might be you, Jamie.
Who drove the tour guide crazy. So I made my own fun. All right, there's a Catherine Feldman watching, saying hi.
Oh, hi, Catherine.
And Kenny Allen, how's it going all?
Hey. So glad you guys can join us.
Yeah. So are you going to get this officially started, or are we just riffing with show tune stories?
Hey, I'll just start it saying, I'm so excited for numerous reasons, because I've wanted to do something like this for such a long time. So I want to thank Jamie, because she's really helped inspire me. And I'm so thankful that you're joining me for my first show doing this, and hopefully for many more shows.
Yes.
I think I just wanted to do something fun, especially with all of the heaviness of the pandemic going on, of just doing something where we can get out of our minds, connect with some cool people, and just have some fun, and maybe some song and music numbers throughout the hour. I don't know.
They got a prequel of that if they've been on for a few minutes.
So thank you again, Jamie. Thank you for joining us. I'm really honored and excited that we're together tonight.
My great pleasure. It looks like we got 18 people with us on Facebook right now. So hello to everybody on the Facebook live stream. And I think a couple of us are here in the Zoom room. So, so grateful to be here. So what do you want to talk to me about, Patrick? I'm on your couch right now.
Okay. So let's just name the elephant in the room. How are you dealing? I mean, you're in Ohio.
I'm in Ohio.
And I'm in New York. So how are you dealing with everything with the pandemic? I mean, professionally and personally, it's been such a hurricane.
Well, since this is about all the feels, if I'm, being candid, I mean, I'm feeling a lot of different things right now. But I will say predominantly, I'm one of those people who's in a position of privilege where I really can embrace this as a break.
Okay.
What's weird, and I wrote a piece to this nature, was in the few weeks before the pandemic and the really got to this fever pitch in the US, and before they were recommending social distancing, I had probably 2 or 3 of the most exhausted weeks of my life.
Wow.
And a lot of it had to do with, being overworked, over-traveled. I lost one of my best friends to suicide at the end of last year. And that obviously opened up a pretty heavy grief process for me. And normally in the month of December, because for those of you who don't know, I travel a lot for work, for training and education and touring for the different projects I do. And December and into the first part of January is usually the time I rest. And I really didn't have a very restful holiday season this year. Mm-hmm. And so I went back into the grind of this first part of the year. And right away, I just felt the tiredness overcoming me. And it was, I just got to a pretty low place emotionally in the few weeks before the pandemic. And I remember saying, and this is the God's honest truth, Patrick. I mean, I feel I could be truly confessional here. And I wrote about it already.
Right.
That I was kind of met with this sense of, and I'm not proud saying this, but I'll be honest, like, gee, maybe if I get this coronavirus, I'll be able to rest and take a break for a few weeks and people won't question it. Because I think we're in such this place where to take a mental health break can be frowned upon, especially of the nature that I needed one, like to not be traveling, to be down, but that would require me canceling dates and having to get replacements. And that doesn't go well with a lot of the people who book me. And I just reached this place of, I don't know when I'm going to get a proper break. And then all this happened. Mm-hmm. And it brought up a lot of feels in me around, why do we take physical illness so seriously?
Right. And I see your writings on this. They're powerful.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I'm glad we're taking physical illness this seriously. I mean, this is nothing to play around with, but I've wanted to see some of the same level of awareness and urgency around things like mental health and addiction, because I am a person in recovery, both on the mental health and both on the addiction side. And those are pandemics in and of themselves too. Yes. And I just live for the day when we can treat those with the same sense of urgency. So that's the main feeling, that I do believe that this forced break has helped me to develop some healthier habits that I need to do, and that I hope will stay around when life transitions back to, I hate to say back to normal, because I don't think there was anything normal about the way we were living.
No. maybe the new
or
normal,
healthy.
or
Yeah, the new normal.
the new normal.
Yeah, but like I've been going on a walk every day.
Wow.
Like a proper walk, anywhere from 2 to 4 miles every day. I know you like to cook. I've been cooking properly for myself instead of just warming food or ordering in.
Yeah.
Um, I'm still working. I'm still working very hard because with our business, we've had to transition a lot of things over to online platform, and I've been getting a lot of things done on the work sense. But I almost feel like the sense of urgency in a lot of ways has been taken away.
Right.
And
I feel like there's been such a paradigm shift of really shaking our world and everywhere that we are, of saying what is really important, because this is really about the survival piece of,
yeah,
this isn't, like you said, this isn't playing around, this isn't a joke, this isn't a hoax, this is a worldwide unprecedented event.
yeah. And
And
it's important to acknowledge, somebody said this, several times throughout this, that we are in a collective global trauma right now.
yes.
And I also want to honor that everybody's in their own process with this right now. As I said, I'm privileged to be able to take this break, and it's not, it's a pause, it's a reflection, it's a reevaluation.
Right.
But I also want to honor and recognize that a lot of people are not. I mean, I'm living alone during this,
Right.
which has come with its challenges, but I also am privileged that I'm not living in anything dysfunctional either.
Mm-hmm.
And I really feel for people who are, and feel a sense of trapped, which is why I think we as mental health professionals need to make ourselves available now more than ever.
Yeah, and being able to use different platforms. And I don't know how it is in Ohio, but I've definitely seen, as my colleagues have, that the governor has really done a push, which I've never really seen such a focus in my career on mental health services until this has happened.
Yeah.
It's usually, on one aspect or another, but, I've seen, briefings where they're saying, take care of yourself and reach out for mental health counseling, which to me is, is revolutionary, of saying, this is okay, you need help, get it, and we're here to help you.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think if we can let this illuminate what's important, then yes. And on the other side of the feels, because I know I've kept it pretty positive so far. One thing that living alone during this pandemic, being on, oh, Patrick, here I am talking to my friend, the relationship counselor.
Live for it.
I mean, it's been a rough road for me in the romantic relationship department in my life. I'm one of those people who is manifoldly blessed in my professional life and my friendships. I mean, I have such good friendships and such good relationships and connections overall. But I'm also twice divorced, and I've been in a, rough off and on relationship with another person throughout my teenage and adult life.
Mm-hmm.
And I've thought it would be a good idea in the fall to maybe try dating again. There was that great meme going around, like, just when you think it's time to start dating again, a worldwide pandemic hits.
Yes, I saw that, sir.
I think they made that one just for me. So, and Patrick, I'm so grateful to you as my friend to really be a sounding board through a lot of the difficulties I've had with parsing through the relationship stuff.
Yeah, I'm glad.
And I'm doing my EMDR therapy around it, and I'm doing my meditation, and I'm doing the work, and this situation is prompting me to work even deeper. Something I will say too is, I hope some good comes out of this in the realm of setting boundaries.
How so?
So, yeah, so let me give you a macro level example, and then I'll bring it back to calling my shit out. So, like, for instance, in 12-step meetings, I wrote an article years ago basically on the culture of touch in 12-step meetings, and how a lot of meetings are not very trauma informed, because there's a lot of this forced hugging, we hug around here, forcing handshakes, all this kind of stuff. And a lot of boundaries around touch are just not respected. Right. Even as therapists, I think we could sometimes assume people want to shake our hands when we meet them. People assume a hug. And I'm the type, as touchy-feely as I can be, and as much as I love hugging you, when I am in an emotionally, when something is spilling out of me, I actually don't like to be hugged. I
Right.
find it smothering. Like I need the space to cry. And I think when we see heavy emotion coming out of people, there could be this tendency to give them the tissue, to give them the hug, to give them the pet, all of this. So yeah, I just hope that maybe this can engender some kind of, no, I'm not shaking hands right now. I'm not hugging right now.
Well, it's interesting because I organized a wellness fair, and I remember one of my vendors was really sweet because it was the first time meeting her,
Mhm.
and I went to shake her hand, and she goes, "Well, I just don't shake hands because it's the flu and cold season."
Yeah.
It was just, and she just was very sweet and genuine, and I thought that's a really loving way to put that boundary of
Hmm.
just what's comfortable for her.
Right.
And I
Right.
see that a lot too. One of the things that's interesting is, I feel in the mental health field when you're working with individuals or couples, and especially I think when you work with kids too, that those boundaries are just as important.
Hmm.
And I feel, not that my clients judge me, but I feel harsh that I don't offer that touch.
Hmm.
I think in my training, there was such a strong message about healthy boundaries and
Right.
not touching, especially being a man in the counseling field, because we are the minority,
Hmm.
of just really not, especially if someone has trauma or if there's a history there of really not, um, being able to make that person uncomfortable. And I think for me, that's been something that I've tried to, uh, learn. How do you still be there empathically and emotionally, but set healthy boundaries physically? I think that's a
Right.
powerful message.
Because even as I say this, I also want to be careful not to be puritanical and anti-touch either, because I do think touch can be a very healing, nurturing, lovely thing. But where we get into problems societally is when we assume people want to be touched.
Yes, and one of Jess just mentioned, this is interesting, that trauma-based yoga classes start with a bow, as it keeps
Mhm.
everyone comfortable. And
Yeah.
yes,
Mhm.
and I really love that too, because it,
Yeah.
I saw an article where they were saying, will we ever be able to shake hands again, or we shouldn't? And I thought,
Mhm.
well, how many other cultures don't? But, it's that, I think that
Mhm.
ties into what we started with the pandemic of, it's really making us change everything.
Mhm. And I like that word reevaluate. In EMDR, we say reevaluation. That's our eighth phase in EMDR.
Yes.
And if this is a reevaluation, then that's a good thing, whether we're doing that personally or societally. I just hope we do. Because my stepson, he's actually my son, my stepson. I don't even know what to call him. He's my bonus boy. Like it feels
Okay.
so horrible to call him because he's my ex-husband's son, and I'm still close to both of his sons. And their mother and I call each other sister ex-wives. So it's a lovely extended family type of situation. And the 15-year-old is just beautifully insightful. And he said to me as he was asking, he's the one who said to me years ago, Jamie, how many jobs do you have? I count 9. He's like, you're a yoga teacher, you play music, you do dance, you're a therapist, you teach, you write. And I said, well, it's all one job as far as I'm concerned. But he's just super insightful. And he was asking how my life has changed and what my daily routine is like. And I was sharing a little of him what I shared with you. And he goes, do you think you'll be able to maintain that when this is all over? And I said,
That's awesome.
I really hope a lot of it sticks around.
Well,
So
and one of the things, I'm just going to jump back to, what I asked you, if I I shared with, with friends and family and clients that for me that it's been almost like a grieving process the last month.
yeah.
And, you know, even though just like you, I'm privileged in their safety and, there's certain things that I don't have to worry about that other people do. Um, there's still that collective anxiety every day, that stress, the unknown. I was sharing with someone the other day that I went to the store and there was that anxiety of, I can't explain it perfectly, but do I wear a mask or do I not?
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a part of me, of saying, well, what if there's someone in the store who's vulnerable? Or what if I have something that isn't the coronavirus, but is something else? I said, and what is it? It's my pride.
Mm.
And so when I went into the store, I thought like by wearing a mask, it took something away because it feels like this pandemic has taken so much away in some aspects. But then I ran into two people, and one of them, it was funny. I had a hat on in the mask, and she was an ex-college professor of mine. So I go, "Hey, Dr. D, it's Patrick," and she goes, "Yeah, I know." For some reason, I thought a mask would just make me unrecognizable,
The
but
masked man.
it felt so nice just to laugh again.
Yeah.
And I thought, all right, so I put a scarf on, and maybe I kept someone safe, or maybe I kept myself safe.
Mm-hmm.
So it's those different things that I've noticed of, I said to someone the other day, I feel in the first 3 weeks of this, I felt like a selfish bastard because it was always about like my safety.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was the anxiety until I started realizing I can keep myself safe and I can be there for others.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been kind of my journey, a process of we got to do this together.
Right. Right. Yes, agreed. And let's hope we can translate that to trauma.
Yes.
Because unhealed trauma is the greatest contaminant plaguing society.
Yeah. And I think this is opening doors for people to start understanding that.
I hope so. I hope so. So on the boundary front with personal stuff, and I don't know if it's directly inspired by this new reality or if it's a combination of the new reality and a lot of the therapeutic work I've been doing, but I've set some pretty interesting boundaries with two people in my life who I won't get into the whole story, but just who I've needed to set some boundaries with regarding this whole relationship thing about this is what I will or will not tolerate. Because I'm one of those kinds of people where I tolerate a lot. I do. I've been tolerating a lot from people I love for a lot of my life. That's why I'm a good recovering codependent. And setting boundaries in terms of how I wish to be treated can be very hard for me.
Yeah.
And I did that. And I've probably lost these two individuals in my life. And yet I feel good that I set the boundary. I feel that whatever's going on now is inspiring a new courage in me.
Right. And I'm also guessing, touching on what I was saying about grief, that's your grief.
Yeah.
Of even though you feel good, it still sucks to lose people you care about.
Amen. I mean, shit. Yeah. I feel simultaneously sad and empowered.
Yeah. And it's almost kind of a mind F. I'll keep it a little PG. That'll be the new Friday Night Feels, mind F. Because it's kind of like you're doing what you're learning, you're teaching, you're practicing, but then it causes pain in the moment.
Right. Right. So we're getting some good comments on Facebook. Would you like? Notice I deflected there. I'm like, okay, no, wait. Before I go to the Facebook comments, let me sit with that pain. Yeah. It's hard.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for you and friends like you who've been there consistently as I've gone through and navigated some of this stuff, saying you deserve to be treated better.
Yes.
Patrick's the best friend because whenever I dish on him about, well, this guy's doing that, Patrick's like, no, move on.
Bye-bye. Bye, Felicia. Bye.
So I feel like instead of the angel devil on my shoulder, I just have a little Patrick with his man bun Bitmoji on his shoulder. You need to send me the little angel one.
I will.
The angel Bitmoji.
Did I ever tell you the joke that I told some of my clients? I said, if I ever make it rich and famous, I'm going to come out with a bobblehead. And all it's going to say is, really? Really? Go deeper. Go deeper. Go deeper.
Really? Okay, so let's see some of the comments. So this is a really good one. Yeah, Elizabeth says right now wearing a mask and being distant is showing love.
Yes, true.
Yeah, this is a big adjustment for everybody. Trying to watch your son finish his senior year of high school is difficult for us. We are trying to make the best of it all. Yeah, so if you do have a question on Facebook, We have a couple comments about the touch issue that, yeah, it could be a powerful form of expressing love for sure.
Yes.
But as like I was saying, don't assume. I think
Right.
that's my big teaching about it.
Well,
Um,
can I just
and
say
then,
one quick thing about that? That when
yeah,
going back to what you said about trauma, is I was working with someone once in the mental health field, and I the majority of being in the MDR therapist of understanding how that is
mhm,
always there. And I remember saying how important that is when I'm working with individuals, with couples, and they said to me, "Oh, I don't even talk about trauma." And I almost like fell over, like, so, and I think you've said this in other sentences, like, so then what do you talk about?
yeah,
Because, like, and they don't even do it on the intake paperwork. So, yes, the touch can be powerful, but, in my paperwork and my intake, I don't delve into it, but I want to know,
hmm
is there trauma here? Is there,
hmm
I just want to be respectful and safe
right.
and have the people feel secure.
Yeah. And for some of your friends and followers who may be watching who don't know my shtick on this, to me, the key to understanding trauma is understanding that trauma just means wound. That the word trauma that Patrick and I are talking about in English comes from the Greek meaning wound. So when we're talking about have you been traumatized, it's really asking the question, have you been wounded? And we all have been wounded,
Yes.
some to different degrees than others. Some of our wounds may require more immediate attention than others. Some may show up in different, more life altering ways than others. Yet, this whole idea of wounds need healing. And if they don't get healed, then we're bleeding all over each other. And
Right.
that's the real contaminant here. So yeah, when therapists will say things like, I don't work with trauma, my answer is what are you working with? Because so
Yeah.
much of our modern understanding really comes from this idea that what problems are about are unhealed wounds. We have a Beth Miller saying, hi, Patrick,
Hi, Beth.
on Facebook.
So if any of you have any questions or things, please just pop them in the Facebook. And for some reason, my technology, shocker, is limited.
I'll make sure for the next weeks, you know how to read the Facebook comments like
Great.
I am. But yeah, you could send us a message here in the Facebook feed, a question, something you'd like us to talk about. Or Patrick, you said you have your email that people can send you.
Yeah, so you can just do it
Access that?
Patrick Monette 13 at gmail.com. And then I do have access for, I don't know why my Facebook thingy isn't working, but, Jamie's got my back. So if you want to do that, more private, if you have something, you can just send it to me and I can read it without sharing your name if that's more comfortable for you.
So we got a good comment here and a really, really good question. So the comment is setting boundaries, especially in the start of the pandemic, was not sitting well with some. Getting strange looks, don't care, I love me and you, smart moves save lives. And then here's a really good question. For children, how do you get them to understand the importance of maintaining distance without being rude? I'm assuming that most people going forward will understand.
Yeah, there's one person I was working with, and I think working with kids, and I always say this, the therapists I know that work with kids have such an amazing gift that,
Mm-hmm.
because working with kids, I feel it's its own artwork. Being able to connect with little ones, I highly respect my peers and colleagues that specialize in working with kids. One of the things that I'm a straight shooter. I always feel you can talk to kids about anything. You just don't have to add the fear element.
Mm-hmm.
It's just about, like, when we grew up, I think it was like the stranger danger stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
where it's more about how do we stay healthy and safe and, make good decisions. It's that informed consent.
Right.
I don't remember, I was in a training and someone that I was working with, I think, was a school counselor, who I have to give shout outs to them because they're amazing, especially what I've seen in this pandemic. They're frontline. Um, and this one woman had a technique where she called it the hula hoop technique.
Mm-hmm.
And she would teach kids, because with little kids, they would come in and they want a hug.
Right.
And, to teach them boundaries and safety, she would say, you're in a hula hoop, which is your space, and
Mm-hmm.
my hula hoop.
Mm-hmm.
And, so she would do that with her clients. And then she ran into one in a store once. And so the kid forgets where they are and goes running up.
Mm-hmm.
And the woman goes, hula hoop. And the kid just automatically
Nice.
backs up
Yeah.
and just knows, oh, hey, what's going on?
Right.
I was working with a client once. I was doing in-home jobs. And I had this one little client who pure heart, really loving kid, teeny tiny, and would just like bear hug you when you come in. And so that was addressed because we were also working on healthy boundaries. So this, we developed like the knuckle bump. So he, when I would come into that, instead of a big hug, it'd be like, "Hey, Patrick," and just kind of like fun things where it isn't about taking something away. It's about adding new ways of doing it.
Right.
In my experiences.
So I've had some interesting experiences walking in my neighborhood, taking my daily walks. What's really fun is I've lived in my neighborhood over 7 years, and I've probably met more of my neighborhood during this than in the 7 years I lived here. Granted, it's 6 feet away, or just kind of waving at people and talking as they're like working on their garden bed and I'm out here in the street. And it's fun because I see a lot of parents like guiding their kids, like, don't get too close, remember 6 feet, and giving some of these physical signals. But I think the one that most stands out to me is this mother who was walking with her 2 kids. I was on the other side of the street and I said hello to them and she said hello back. And her kids kind of got afraid and she told them just very gently, it's okay to still say hello to people.
Yes.
And I just think that was a very nice directive or teaching moment that she gave them. And then when she told them that, then they waved at me.
Yeah.
And it was real. And I'm really noticing how much I'm appreciating saying hello to people now. And even as I'm walking in the neighborhood, when cars go by, I'm like, hey.
I don't know who you are, but you might need me, or I
people.
Need.
Yeah.
I went into the supermarket, and this was probably week 2, and it felt like I was in A Handmaid's Tale. I kind of had a little hard time breathing. I'm like, the wall.
Blessed be the fruit.
I'm going to end under his eye. I'm going to end up on the wall for something.
Right.
Now, and what I noticed, seriously, like, it was gray. I don't know what it was. And then it was just quiet, and everyone's like, just like, without the gray uniforms of the ants or whatever they called. Mm-hmm. And then I noticed there was no music. And then I was just thinking, this is so awkward. Like, no one's looking. It was almost like this, that like the kids are feeling. And then I saw someone I knew, and I forgot, and I go, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" And he turned just like those kids, like, "Hey, Patrick, it's good to see you." I'm like, "Yeah, you too." And it just kind of shattered that discomfort a little bit.
Yeah. So we have Elizabeth here making a good comment. I think if it's contextualized as keeping people safe, just like traffic safety and sharp object, etc., that's when we can keep each other safe, when we're showing we care. Very, very, very important. And I think that's something I try to do when we talk about touch and 12-step forums or other therapeutic forums, that it is a safety thing. Yep. So don't assume. So thank you for that comment.
And it's funny because I think if you do like the touch, being able to, I think it's about that respect of, if you like the touch in your hug, you have every right for that, just as well as someone has the right to say that's not comfortable.
For sure.
I think it just changes that paradigm a little bit of, it doesn't have to be either or, it can be and.
Both and. Exactly. And that's the heart of how I teach anything. Speaking of Handmaid's Tale, and I have to say the memes are very helpful to me through this. And I do have a warped and sick sense of humor, and I have to emphasize that laughing at this does not mean I don't care.
Right.
It's just that living in this absurdity, having some humor to point things out has been super exciting. And one of the memes, had the handmaids on it and says, as long as this doesn't end with us greeting each other, blessed be the fruit, I'm good.
Oh my God. I can't even, that creates anxiety.
Because the other true confessions, I just touched my face. Sorry about that.
I think they're
the other true confession I can put out there, Patrick, dear, I don't even know, you may know this about me. Some people in the ICM world know this about me. ICM is Institute for Creative Mindfulness. I love disaster, apocalyptic, and dystopian movies. I love all 3 of them. I discovered this, I guess as a kid, I always watched them. And my brother and I have this one earthquake movie that's kind of our common film, right? And when I was in graduate school working on my master's, I discovered that having a disaster movie play in the back, just on low volume while I was typing a paper, was actually comforting to me. soothing
Oh.
to me. And at the time, my friend ascertained, I think you feel some kind of sense of safety, like in your nice little bubble writing a paper in comparison to what people on the screen are going to. And truly, when I write a book or when I wrote my dissertation, when I wrote big things, I had to have a disaster or an apocalyptic movie playing in the back. One I had seen before, nothing I was like, The Stand is another one I tend to keep running. And yeah, it's just kind of like the white noise. And so Steve Danziger, when he was writing a book with me, he said, so if I start reading earthquake examples every time, I know that the disaster movies have gotten to your head.
Oh my. Well, that's good to know if we ever work on a writing project together.
Yeah. So when all of this broke, Mary, who runs our company here, literally said, Marich, you've been preparing your whole life for this.
You know, that's interesting. I've heard so many people say that, you know, especially if they have really intense anxiety or, you know, have survived specific traumatic events, they feel they've been prepping for this their whole lives.
Well, one thing we talked about on a dissociation webinar I did, because as you know, dissociation is a clinical specialty of mine. That's my primary mental health diagnosis is a dissociative disorder. That by and large, people who've been living with a dissociative disorder are doing pretty well right now. Because another great meme says, some of you lack the dissociative skills to survive the apocalypse, and it shows.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have that hanging above my desk right now. I literally do it. It laughed so hard. And I think, and I don't say that to be mean, because I know people are struggling right now. Yet when I saw that, there was like this validation that my mind has actually prepared me for this.
Right.
Because this is mild compared to other things I've struggled with.
Right.
To say mild, but we have to honor everybody's subjective experience. But I really am privileged to know that I'm doing okay right now, because so much of what I've been through in my life has prepared me for this.
Right.
That's my true confession.
And being able to be there for other people too, of, New York is so different the way, I mean, because I'm in northern New York, so it's very different than, the battle zone of New York City and, everything down there. So I think just being able to see one of the things that I've seen that's hard is because we have the university here. So we have a lot of students who, in my classes and everything, like we're going through that they were here and safe, but their families weren't.
Yeah.
And, what do you do with that? Do I go home and risk getting infected to be with my family? Do I have it's forcing a lot of decisions and forcing a lot of people to use skills they didn't know they have. And I think it kind of goes along, even though we're dashing in the humor of that seriousness of you are a survivor. And so you do have those skills.
Yeah. And adaptation, I believe, is our greatest gift as mammals, as humans, to be able to adapt. And even in EMDR, the therapy we practice, the model of it is called the adaptive information processing model. And to me, a sign of health and healing is this ability to adapt, or when we tap into this ability to adapt, it can bring us to this place of great health and healing.
Right. One of the things too that I struggled with for a few days myself was letting myself be angry about the pandemic.
Go on. I want to hear more about this.
Yeah, because I thought it was just anxiety, because I would wake up and all of this, and then one day I just said, I'm so pissed because I just felt like someone had just stolen all of my I remember when I was living in Chile, there was this one time where my friend and I had gone out dancing, and we got on the bus at night to go home, and I was robbed at knife point. And I remember that, and that's kind of what I can correlate it to, where that sense of security was just completely taken. Like anytime I went on the bus, it was that anxiety, it was that stress, I didn't know if I was going to survive, because they could have just killed me and it would have been over a bracelet. And it just kind of, from my experiences, it triggered that anger of, I didn't do anything wrong, but yet this is happening to me. Right. My safety is gone. My people, whether it's here or in China or in Italy, or as a human race, are dying. I'm not a medical, physician, so I'm limited there. So it was just brought up all this frustration of, do I have to worry about, I can't even go to the store. you know, all those different things of that fear of, well, what about people who are losing their jobs and how's that going to affect everyone else? And once I let myself be angry, it felt like I could breathe again for the first time in probably 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And it just made me realize of, we all just, for me, I thought it was anxiety because that's what I was, you know, it just kept going. But as you know, I love dancing with anger. I do the anger management group. So it just took a minute for me to catch on of, oh, I'm just angry. And that's okay too.
That's okay too. I think that's a great life lesson, period, whether it's about the pandemic or any struggle that you're dealing with. That, and now speaking as a woman, or at least somebody who's at least been socialized in a lot of the norms women are supposed to follow, anger is this emotion we dare not express or feel, and especially when it's colored by religious messaging, it could be. And I think the biggest healing lesson I've learned through all these seasons of my life is get angry, because if you stuff it down, it's going to fester or come out in some other way. And I remember one point feeling like it was somehow showing a lack of faith if I got angry, because I mean, I am a spiritual person and believe that there's some grander plan, whether you call it God or the universe or flow or whatever. And man, if I'm getting angry that I'm not getting my way, does that mean I'm not trusting God? And then it dawned on me at one point, well, if I believe God or goddess or higher power knows all and sees all, they already know I'm angry.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So why not be honest and genuine about it? And I believe so much of what healing has meant to me is get to this place where I can be honest.
Yeah. It's funny. I had something similar like that happen to me once, but it was a little different. Of, if I believe in a high, whatever power, like you said, God or whatever, then that represents unconditional love, which means they're strong enough to handle my anger.
Yeah.
And if they're strong enough, then I can be angry, and then I can figure it out and I can move on. But I think sometimes too, what I see is it's that belief of, if you're angry, that's bad. You're not in a good place. You're not taking care of yourself. You're going to the dark side. Darth Vader, you're going, something's wrong with the Force. And I also see it when people have been exposed to such violence and abuse, that their instant definition of anger is violence.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I work really hard to help people separate that of, violence is not anger. Anger is an emotion. It's primal, and it can actually keep us safe in a lot of moments.
Right. Jonathan, who's watching, commented that he met a guy in a 12-step meeting once who said, my anger keeps me alive. That, I know I'm alive when I'm feeling that.
Preach.
And yeah, and I like this idea that it doesn't have to express as violence.
Exactly.
And if anything, I think when we try to hold it down is when it's likely to express as things that are not serving.
Do you know one of the best movies I think they ever did about anger management was Inside Out?
Yes. Agreed.
One of my favorite movies, because I can relate to all of that.
I can too.
And it was funny, the other moment I realized I was a little out of balance with the pandemic is when I went to the grocery store and this person was in front of me and she just stopped in the middle of the aisle. And I was just like, well, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Just stop 6 feet. 6 feet.
So Amy's on right now. Amy is on, our friend Amy.
Oh, hey, Amy.
Amy says hello. So Elizabeth, your comment is I'm going to read this comment. It's beautiful. So interesting about the anger piece. I have not felt anger one bit, but what I do feel and have felt for 3 weeks is the shock part of initial grief.
Yeah.
I feel the same way just after my dad died, and any pet during the shock and disbelief stage extended. But the cruel kicker here is that the pandemic ramps up every day. Yeah. So it's like shock and Saw all over again, like Bill Murray and Groundhog Day. Yep. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought up Star Wars, because that's another common area of interest for Patrick and I. We have Evita, we have therapy.
Yes.
We have Star Wars.
Yeah. Do you know, speaking of this, I just got Disney Plus, which has I haven't watched it yet.
You've not watched The Mandalorian or the new?
I was trying to balance. So this weekend I should dip my toe into it.
We'll discuss. We'll definitely discuss. So what's interesting about Star Wars, and I wrote a blog about this right after the first of the year, called I Am All the Jedi, because to Ethan's question about, well, Jamie, what do you do? The answer I've come up with is I'm a Jedi Master. Like, that is what I do. Because every job I occupy, every role I fill in life really is kind of connected to this larger mission of cultivating my own light and helping people to discover theirs.
Right.
But one of the reasons I can do that is, I've been intimate with my dark side. I know how to get intimate with my dark side when I need to.
Right.
And it's a beautiful reminder of a prayer that is important in the yogic tradition I study. And the prayer is called the Hasta toma prayer. And you'll see my point here in a minute. So the prayer in English says, lead me from the unreal to the real, from darkness into the light, and from time-bound consciousness to the timeless state of being. But the second one, lead me from darkness to light, there's actually a subtler translation to it that is really damn cool. It's lead me from the darkness to the light of awareness that sees both darkness and light in the same light.
Oh, I love that.
Because this binary of like, darkness bad, light good. Because I play on the team of light for sure, but that also requires not shaming myself for my darkness either.
Right. Well, there's one book I read a long time ago. It was called The Dark Side of the Light Chasers.
Oh, let's hear this. I love it.
It was about that of like, you can be a good person, but you have to see yourself. It's not, like you said, it's not so binary. It's not so black and white. There's a rainbow of colors.
Right.
And being able to explore, sometimes our darkness is part of our pain, it's part of our journey. And, I don't remember the details of the book. The title of that always just stuck with me. And I'm going to fast forward to our, dedication to the Force, or, because I remember I was watching one of the newer ones where, before he was Anakin, before he became Darth Vader, I was watching this one part where all of the Jedi masters are saying there's something dark in you, and I got so irritated and angry for him because he had experienced trauma. His mother was killed.
Yes.
Love he wasn't allowed to be with.
Yes.
He believed in this powerful of the Force of helping people, but he was being forced to choose. And for me, when I saw Anakin, the character, when he played that, the eyes are going darker. I said, what would have happened if someone had just said, do you need a hug? Like, do you need to talk about this? Like, instead of just say, hey, go deal with it, use the Force, meditate, be one with you.
And that's spiritual bypass. Ooh, yes. What a juicy link.
Yes.
Love it.
Of being able to say, hey, in order to be a true Jedi Master, you have to honor the pain and the anger and the sadness, because we are all of it. One of the questions that popped in was, what are some healthy ways to release anger? How do you deal with that? And I think that's what we're talking about, is kind of what Jamie did a few minutes ago, of showing us she took a minute just to be with it. Just to be with the pain that she was talking about of the end of these relationships, because she put a healthy boundary. And I think when we're talking about anger, the couple of things that I do are really quick interventions of asking myself where I feel it in my body. So that way it's not this ominous, innocuous cloud that's overpowering me, but I can ground it a little bit.
Right.
It becomes less vilified. And then I tell myself it's okay that I'm angry. And I feel like that really takes it from a 10 down to a 7 or an 8. And, in the EMDR world, we have some really powerful techniques that I always teach my clients when I'm doing workshops, when I'm working with clients, that really help us bring it down. But I think it's the basic of, I especially when I'm working with adults, I think because we've been programmed so intensely not to be angry, or, people say, well, I just want to get rid of it. And I'll use the example of, what would you do if there was a baby crying in the room? I said, would you just throw it out? Would you tell it to shut up and get in the closet? And they're like, no, Patrick, I wouldn't. I said, exactly. So why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah.
So I hope that helps answer a little bit, tying in what we're saying. But the first one is, the truth will set you free. It's one of my favorite sayings of, wow, I'm just pissed about this, or I'm just angry. And then I find, I don't know what your experiences are, Jamie, I find that my system kind of takes over from there.
Yeah. Well, it's talking about honesty, being with and not trying to push away, not throwing the baby out. I mean,
Yes.
brutal, but good metaphor.
Keep it real, right?
Yeah, we're keeping it real. The longer I've done this work as a therapist and some of the other spiritual things I teach, I'm convinced it's not our feelings that cause us problems. It's everything we do to keep ourselves from feeling them or to keep people comfortable, because it's like everything we do to shove down is what causes the problems. That even does include the darkness. And I'm so grateful for this kind of new reframe on that Star Wars scene. That's like, yeah. So that reminds me of an amazing poem, and you could look it up real easily. It's My Name is Shame. It's a pretty popular poem in the addiction field. It's attributed to John Bradshaw. And there's this, and basically it's shame speaking in the poem. Wow. And then there's a dialogue. If you go on YouTube, Jamie Marich, My Name is Shame, there's a version of me reading it. And then it gets into this dialogue between the person and their shame. And the most powerful line in that poem for me is, by loving you, I am free.
Wow.
Saying to the shame, by loving you, I am free. By loving you and everything that you've caused me, I'm free. And I read that line years ago. Actually, a professor in graduate school, one of the best adjuncts I had, who was a well-known addiction counselor in this area, he read that poem for our intro to addiction class one night. And I was just bawling like a baby as he read it. And he came up to me right before he gave us break for the evening, and he just looked at me, and in that way that was like, I know.
That's powerful.
Yeah. So yeah, by loving you, I am free. And I think, we talk so much about self-love and the importance of loving the self, but that means loving all of us, our warts and scars, our emotions, our story. By loving you, I'm free.
I learned powerful from someone's story who shared with me about their understanding of shame. And their shame was really focusing on their weight. And they had never understood what they were experiencing was shame until they were going into a grocery store. And they had the electronic doors, and they were transparent, so they served almost as a mirror. And they were walking, and as they got closer to the door, they found that they started looking exactly to the ground, so they didn't have to see themselves. And they just froze of saying, I hate myself so much. I'm so ashamed of how I look. I can't walk into a grocery store with my head held high with any respect.
Wow.
And that just blew me away, and it made me think of how many times, it's hard with technology. We're always with our heads down, but when is it when we don't have technology of, is my head up? Am I looking? Am I connecting? Am I saying hello to people, or am I avoiding? That was just profound for me in my development of starting to look at that of, I grew up learning a lot about shame and guilt, and you don't do this, or you're going to do this, or something bad. But I never learned how toxic shame can be and how poisonous. It can be really profound.
So my other favorite definition of shame, this is Anais Nin. She said, shame is the lie that someone told you about yourself.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, and it's like shame becomes crystallized when we believe that lie and internalize it. And so much of what healing is about, right, is discovering a new truth. Right. So we have a comment here I want to read. This is from Marie. I have an adult handicapped son who is medically fragile, and I find my anxiety stems a lot from playing the what ifs if he gets ill. What if I get, how will I care for him? Yeah. And my comment I can make to that is, I know as a trauma survivor, sometimes I can get into this loop of, well, if I can account for every what if, then I won't have to be afraid anymore.
Yeah.
You can't account for every what if. I mean, don't get me wrong, I can still do it from time to time and still plan for every contingency, but life doesn't work that way.
And I'm also going to do a plug to that of, if you're having that anxiety, that's when you can reach out. I mean, what's nice, this is one of the benefits I would say of the pandemic, is most of us are now able to offer telehealth services for people, and insurances are supposed to be getting rid of their copays, so it makes it a lot more affordable for people in the area. So if transportation, like for this woman who's saying, she's sounds like the prime caregiver of her son, so maybe going away to an appointment for an hour isn't possible. But now with telehealth, you can. And so I would say, if you're feeling that anxiety or feeling a certain way, reach out. I mean, we have so many talented therapists here, and I'm sure in Ohio and all around, to where everyone's listening, of, what are you going to lose by trying something new?
Yeah.
And reach out, because we're here to help.
And whatever anxiety we're talking about, it is fundamentally about fear. I mean, I believe that personally. I believe that from my recovery work. I believe that as a therapist, that when people express anxiety, it is a fear. It is a fear. And I think it's human nature to go into the what ifs, but you can also, as you're able to, there's never a great word here, because some people, it works to think of relaxing into the fear. Some people think of facing the fear. Some people think of feeling the fear. Whatever construct is going to work for you. I've just seen so many people live lives that are stuck when fear has ruled it. And I think that can be part of a shame script too, wherever that comes from, whether it is social BS that's taught you that, whether it's home of origin stuff, or whether it's a little bit of both. So I know, and I say that, but even as I say that, I'm still fighting fear on a subtle level. I'm a Jedi master, though. I have the tools. I have the lightsaber. So are there any final questions for us? I know we're down to the last few official minutes. So if anybody on Facebook wants to pop a question through. This has been fun chatting with you.
Oh my gosh, it's a whole new platform, sister. We're opening the doors.
A whole new world.
A whole new world.
A whole new world.
Yeah,
That's
another music.
Where we'll be.
Where we'll be.
A thrilling place.
For you and
me. We'll have to work on that one. I can show you the
Well, I mean, we only have a few minutes. We can't do the whole rendition, and people are probably like,
yeah, I know. I know.
Well, no, we'll have to do a whole new show on, like, the Jedi. Remember the book I think you recommended?
Dharma of Star Wars?
Dharma of Star Wars.
Matthew Bulletin, yeah. It's a great book.
It is. It's, I think it just opens a whole, and I'm amazed, like the Star Wars, it's funny, growing up, I watched the movies, but it really is a whole philosophy, and it's something so many people can relate to.
Amy asked for the big box, little box dance.
Oh, we didn't practice. Oh,
we may have to end the show with that. Speaking of Star Wars, I truly believe all life can be explained through Star Wars as a metaphor.
Right.
And maybe my new test when I date somebody, because one of the people I was talking to, although he's into Star Wars, one night I pulled out the Force is real. And I got met with okay.
Well, I didn't tell you my contingency plan, did I? Like, you're just going to have them be like, I need you to call this number.
Yeah.
And then I'll answer the phone when he answers, and I have an itinerary of the entire.
You'll be my vetter. You'll vet candidates for me, regardless of their gender. You'll be my vetter. Filter free. My little angel Patrick on my shoulder. So, all right. So I do think we should end with the big box, little box dance. So
right, you lead it.
Basically,
before we do that, can I just do one quick?
Oh yeah, go on.
So this is this is like a new show I've said of just wanting to do something. So what I'm going to do is, just because of time, I'm going to plan it every 2 weeks on Friday night from 8 to 9. And I already have a few people who are going to be my co-hosts, and so hopefully.
Co-hosts. That's what we are.
Hopefully Jamie will join us again. But if you have any questions or issues or things that you'd like to talk about, just kind of, take time and send me a message. But I hope it turns into something fun, and I hope it was helpful for you tonight. And I'm glad you all joined us.
I had a blast. I got to hang out with my friend, and other people got to hang out with us. So, and Amy, if we do the big box, little box dance, I think that means that you should come on the show as a co-host.
I
at
think
one
so
point.
too.
So, all right. So a lot of people tell me they can't dance. All dancing is kind of moving with gestures. So back in the day when I lived in Europe, I had this one friend when we would go out dancing and clubbing and in that part of my life. This is how she would dance.
In her bliss,
And
right?
it kind of became this joke where we were like, okay, she's doing big box, little box. So we would all dance along with her. So if you want to join us, big box, little box. Then we added climb the ladder. Climb the ladder. And then because we were living in rural Bosnia-Herzegovina, it was like feed the chickens. Feed the chickens. And big box, little box. Climb the ladder. Feed the chickens. One more time. Big box, little box. Climb the ladder. Feed the chickens. And you could add any like life activity that you want. So like burn the popcorn. Burn the popcorn. Lightsaber. And then you could do lightsaber and call the cops. Call the cops. And you can go on and on. You know, grocery shopping. Grocery shopping. And so the COVID-19, wear the mask. Wear the mask. Wash your hands.
And I have to say, I was at a training where Jamie did this, and what was beautiful, and I love that, it seems kind of funny, but to have a group of professionals do this, it really shook the shit out, and it really made us to our kid like a little bit instead of being so rigid of like, and we all just started laughing, and it was really powerful and healing.
I love that. Institute for Creative Mindfulness. We shake the shit out.
Yeah, totally. I'm glad I'm part of it. Yay!
Yay. Oh, I love you, Patrick.
I love you too, Jay. And I hope everyone stays safe. And, if you need anything, reach out. We're all here. If there's anything I can do in the northern New York area, let me know. And, Jamie, I know you got Ohio covered. And
I'm in Ohio. I'm in Northeast Ohio. I am just south of Cleveland, and I'm just a little bit west of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So if you're in this part of the country, feel free to reach out if you need linked up with some resources.
And if you ever have a chance, Jamie does a beautiful TED Talk that's on YouTube that's all about trauma. And I actually show it in my class, where she goes into more about the definition of trauma. It's really beautiful. So check it out.
TraumaMadeSimple.com is a good place you can reach that. That's a free resources site that I keep with a lot of videos, articles, audio meditations, and then we have the TEDx talk right on the front there. So if you could just remember TraumaMadeSimple.com, you'll find us.
Right. So everyone stay safe. May the force be with you.
May the force be with you. Jai Bhagwan. All right, so this is how you turn off the live cast. So, excuse us, I have to run him through some tech support. So see up in the corner where the little arrow is?
Yep.
You should be able to click there and say stop live stream. There we go. And then you could stop the recording.